recording because this webinar, at the time of publicising it, nobody had any objections to it being recorded. All right, so this is a UCISA digital capability 60-minute tech talk. My name is Lorraine Barclay, and I'm going to be joined today by Jim Tyson. I'm hoping that you can all see the screen and everything is fine. So Jim Tyson, he's a senior IT systems trainer from UCL, and today what he's going to be doing is delivering a session on creating SCORM using eXe. Okay, so if you look in the bottom right hand corner of the slide, you'll see there's a little hashtag. So if you want to actually tweet about this, you can do. All right. Okay, so why are we doing this? Well, in the last webinar, what happened is that we asked for suggestions on topics that you would like to hear more on, and some of you said that you would like some software demonstrations, and that's what we're going to be doing today. Jim is going to give us a demonstration, but before he goes ahead and does that, what I'd like to do is just go through a couple of the activities that our group is involved in. All right, so what we do is we share best practices, and we do that via conferences. So we had a conference, a digital capability conference, spotlight on digital capabilities, and that was earlier on this year. We had 2 days in Southampton, and it went really well. And we had recorded quite a lot of the sessions, and they can be found on the UCISA website. So if you want to find out what happened at the conference, please visit the UCISA website, look for our group, and have a view of some of those videos. We also use Twitter, so I mentioned already the handle, or the hashtag should I say, and what we use Twitter for is for announcements, but we're also thinking of actually having Twitter chats as well. So maybe you can tell us whether you'd be interested in that. Webinars. Okay, so we have this 60-minute tech talk. It's not the first one. We've been doing quite a few recently, and they are recorded and can be found on our forum, which is our, we call it the UCISA DCG community. And if you wanted to search for it, all you have to do is type in UCISA DCG community, type in Ning, N-I-N-G. Oh, it's very noisy. I think I'm going to mute Jim for now, okay, because there we go. All right, and so yes, so if you want to join our community, you're welcome to. As I said, you can just Google it, UCISA DCG community, type in Ning, and you'll be able to find the link for it. But what do we also do? We also produce surveys as well, survey results. So we've surveyed most of the universities in the UK and about digital capabilities, and what we do is we publish the results. We go around telling people what the results are at different conferences as well. So these are the activities that we're actually involved in. I'm going to move on. So really, there's nothing more for me to say except for to introduce Jim Tyson, and as I said, he's going to deliver a session on creating SCORM using eXe. So I think I'll unmute you. Jim, over to you. Hello, Jim. Are you there? Okay, it looks as if Jim is having difficulty in hearing me. I'm just going to type a message to him. He's changing the presentation. Okay, Jim, we can't hear you, so would you like to try and play around with say something, or? Okay, well we can see your desktop, Jim. Is it possible for you to talk to us? Okay. You appear to be muted. Okay, so you need to unmute yourself. I've unmuted you.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go. Lovely.
Right.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Sorted. Well, hello everybody. My name's Jim Tyson. I work in UCL as an IT trainer. I'm going to be talking today about using an authoring package called eXe to create learning objects and to create learning objects that can be published as SCORM packages particularly. I think that's probably part of the interest, is the idea of creating SCORM packages, because it can be mysterious and daunting. But actually, eXe will publish content in different formats, and in some ways, it's almost as interesting to look at format published in HTML5, for example. So we'll be looking at those things. As Lorraine said, this is one of the software demonstrations that we do. So my job, I work in the digital skills development team in information services at UCL. Digital skills development is part of digital education, so we're positioned within a section that's got a lot of learning technologists and so on. My academic background is in linguistics and computer science, and my work is divided between what I do with students mainly and what I do with staff mainly. With students, I'm mainly involved in IT training that's oriented towards research. So looking at a lot of digital skills involved in a successful student research career. And then the other way that I face is towards our enterprise systems, and my job there is mainly design, because that will mainly be blended learning efforts or entirely online efforts, creating pieces of work to help people with our enterprise system. So our student registration system, or our finance systems, and so on. So that's me. And what is eXe? So eXe, styled lowercase e, uppercase x, lowercase e, is an authoring package. So it's a package wrapped around technologies to create digital objects. And it's wrapped around them to make it easier for the non-specialist to author learning content. It's very simple to use, and you can use it to create both static learning objects and some interactivity in more dynamic learning objects. And they can be output as either SCORM or HTML5. There are one or two other formats, but those are the two important ones. And the output can be customized and branded using standard technologies. So the interest in eXe for me is from two things. One, that it's actually a free and open source product that's quite easy to use, but also the customization of the product is using standard technologies. So if you wish to customize or brand the learning that you produced in eXe, you can do that using CSS and HTML5, which are well-known technologies. And in an institution like ours, I have a lot of colleagues who are professional web developers, professional designers, and so we can draw on that resource. Having created the content, we can draw on some readily available resource using standard technology to customize and brand it. So who is responsible for eXe? Well, eXe is an open source community effort, so it's produced by academics originally. And originally the community that developed it was in New Zealand, and For a few years, the main development took place there. And now development has moved mainly to Europe, to Spain, because eXe has been taken up by the Spanish Ministry of Education, and it's part of their effort to promote digital learning in the Spanish education system. And so there's a moderate amount of support for eXe at the moment. It certainly, the project has legs and it's going forward. It doesn't have the kind of community that a big product like Moodle does, but nonetheless, it certainly it isn't moribund. It's going ahead. What I thought we'd talk about today is using eXe mainly, but I thought I'd show you some eXe output first in a couple of contexts, some stuff that's been produced using the authoring package to give you an idea what it is actually does. And we'd look at one of those outputs. We'd be looking at a SCORM package to just show you what it looks like when you actually take hold and use a SCORM package created in eXe. And then the main part, I suppose, will be taken up with me demonstrating how easy eXe is to use, and then finally publishing some content and taking questions. So that's my agenda, and I'll go through that now, unless anybody before I start has any questions. Okay, so using eXe is straightforward.
Sorry, can I just stop you there? So if anybody's got any questions, I mean, you can type it into the chat, or if you want to, if you have a speaker, then a microphone, then you can actually ask the questions by the microphone. So is there anybody that's got a question?
Okay, well, let me switch then to showing you some eXe output. To give you an idea of why you would bother. So I've got a couple of things. These were that I've just produced quite recently that I'm working on at the moment. So this is a course called Our First Course that I've been working on in eXe. And this is raw HTML output. So this is just a web page. And the content is mine. The actual objects you see on the page here were created by eXe, so they've wrapped my content up in these different kinds of eXe objects. So the navigation here was automatically created. The navigation button down here, this was automatically created so that I can navigate through the learning. The different kinds of rendering on the page. So here where I've stated some objectives, this is eXe calls this a reflexive exercise where you give the learner something to read and think about, and then down here that particular kind of eXe object has some feedback that you can give to the learner with a hide and show feedback button. Here's a reading exercise with a link for the student to read some stuff before they go on, and so on. So you can create quite ordinary HTML websites with the usual range of objects on them, but also with some things like that might not be quite so easy to do unless you're a real XML guru. So this is a pop quiz that we've inserted at this point in the learning object, so the user gets to say, well, you know, do they know the answer to this question yet? So let's try and show the feedback. Well, apparently I didn't get it right. We can include all the sorts of things that you would include on a web page, and you can use the objects in different ways. So this time I used this object here, which has a feedback button, to actually ask the user to try some stuff on the command line and then check their results against mine. So that's one eXe package that I'm in the middle of working on at the moment. This is another one. Similarly, this was a package for the statistical software, and So some of this, by the way, so this, for example, shows you something that I reuse. In all of the learning I've been creating, I've been putting in some stuff about how the student should approach online learning. And so this object actually goes into a lot of courses I'm producing at the moment. As we move through, you'll see we've got, in this case, links, and I think in some of them we've linked directly to video on YouTube for the student to watch during the course of the learning, and then we've put in some sort of formative exercises. They look very similar, these two. eXe provides a range of themes, and what I did was I was just trying out this theme to have a look and see what it looked like. So that's two different eXe packages that I've created, or I'm in the middle of creating actually. It's still works in progress, and that's what they look like. So that's the kind of output you get. So how do you actually produce this? Well, this is the eXe interface. When you start eXe, it opens a tab in a web browser, Firefox in my case, and it's actually running a little lightweight web server in the background, so that you can, the main reason for that is so that you can view your work interactively. Here is the main eXe editing window, the authoring window it's called here, in the main part. On the left-hand side here, we have at the top an outline, which is how eXe likes you to create your learning plan as an outline in this part, and then beneath what eXe calls the iDevices, and the iDevices are the things that actually wrap up bits of learning content. So you choose a device suitable to your learning content, and we'll see that in a moment. If I'm creating a new package, then it's a good idea actually to fill out the properties here, and this is the kind of metadata that you might have with a package, and you can actually specify what kind of metadata you want. You can have doubling core and so on. You know, if you're conscientious, you will fill out the metadata. If you're like me, you probably won't until afterwards. Menu at the top here gives you the usual kind of control over file management things, such as opening files, saving files, or recent files. And down here you'll see there's the export link on this menu, and we can, this is where when we've created content we can export it to various formats. So educational standard is really the LMSs that are available, and they've got common cartridge, SCORM, the two most common SCORM standards now, and IMS, which is another commonly used learning management system standard. You can also export to a website, and I have tried a couple of these as well as those two, which are the ones that I'm generally interested in. I actually did try creating an ebook from my learning, and that worked quite well using this EPUB 3 format here, which is used a lot for electronic books. Creating packages, you can actually reuse them with insert package. So if you do create something that you want to use again and again, you can easily do that and insert it into a new package. So that's just the basics of the interface. To remind you a bit, the aim is to produce HTML5 or SCORM so that eventually it will look like this, or it will sit inside your LMS. Here's Moodle. Actually, I won't show you this one because it isn't actually a SCORM package, but I'll show you a SCORM package later. So how do we use it? Well, before you do anything, you have to actually write some learning objectives, and so I'm going to assume some fairly simple learning objectives here, and I'll create my first page, the home page in my outline. That's already there by default, and I'll just rename that. I'll call this welcome. And you see that's been changed the title there. I'm not going to worry about the appearance. Looking at the style at the moment, you might think, well, I don't like that. I'm not going to worry about it because I have a whole list of styles here that I can switch to at some point, but I'll try and get some of the content in before I worry about the appearance. So there's my welcome. And on my welcome page, the first thing I want to do is actually put in some objectives. So before I go any further, I'm going to go down to textual information here. This is an iDevice. Remember, the iDevices are the wrappers of different little regions of your screen or your page. And I'm going to choose the iDevice objectives. So I've selected the iDevice objectives on the left there, and it appears in my main screen. And I can now start to edit it. So what will you learn? So this is a really simple, straightforward text editor, and I'm just going to state my learning objectives here. And so let's see. Well, after this learning, you will be able to. Let's put them in as bullet points. Nice little editor here. Explain the use of eXe to create SCORM packages. Use eXe to create a simple project. We could go on. There's most straightforward stuff that you might want to do in a text editor is here, alignment and bullets and so on. You can create links, you can insert images, and you can insert multimedia, so audio or video, by choosing any of these links. And you can also actually, if you really wanted to, by the way, you can go deeper into this editor and you could go in and actually fiddle with the HTML underneath it, but I don't want to do that right now. So I'm going to go down to these controls here and just click to save. So there's the preview of the actual rendered content for objectives, and all of these little graphics here, like this one, and the style of this heading here at the top, these are controlled by the style that I've chosen. So now that I've actually got some content in there, let's have a look and see what happens if I change the style. I'll change the style from Intef to default. Excuse me. And you can see that changes the actual appearance. So this one is, I believe this is actually the Educational Office of the Region of Murcia in Spain. They created that theme. One here called Kids. And so on. So what you see is that eXe separates the presentation from the creation of the content. So okay, so that's my first object there, my first learning object, just a statement of the objectives for the course. The next thing to do is to start adding pages. Now, pages are either topics, sections, or units. So I'm going to add a page now, and you'll see that's a topic. And I'll add a page there, and that's a section. And if I add a page again, I get down to the unit. Now, topic, section, unit, that's the hierarchy that's predefined in eXe for you. Those are already in eXe. If you wanted more, because it's free and open source, you could of course get hold of your development guys and start a project, and you could, you know, create more than that. But really, those 3 levels are probably enough. So the hierarchy at the moment has my welcome page with objectives, and underneath this, I'm going to put a topic, and let's rename it as let's call this "What is SCORM?" And the section, let's rename that to LMS standards. And then the unit, well, I'll tell you what, let's add more units there. So this unit we'll rename to SCORM again. And then we'll add another, we'll have a second unit here, which will be dealing with Tin Can. Because we probably should tell people about Tin Can if we're talking about SCORM. So there's a simple hierarchy that I've created, and of course you can create, it could be more flat, you can create as complicated an outline as you want. Let's go back now and let's add a page. I'm going back to the welcome, to the top level there, the home level. I'm going to add another page, and I'm going to call it authoring learning. So at the moment I'm just creating the outline. I'm not putting in any content. You may be like me, you may have a really kind of slightly nerdy hierarchical mind, in which case creating outlines like this comes as second nature. Or it may be that you work in a more fluid way, and that's fine. You don't have to, with any of this, there's no reason that you have to create it in a particular way. Once I've created stuff, by the way, I can move it up and down in the outline, so I can decide that publishing should come before authoring. I could also decide that publishing is such an important topic that I'm going to promote it or demote it. So you can move things both up and down in the linear list, the linear order, or you can promote them up and down in terms of the hierarchy of objects. If I go into what is SCORM now, to actually create content, we're always looking at using the iDevices here. And so we've got a free text object, we've got a note object, and we've got a prerequisites object. So I'm going to put all three of those on the page. So let's edit the free text object. So SCORM is a standard for creating online learning materials. That'll do. Maybe not the best definition of SCORM in the world. I could put a link in here to Wikipedia SCORM if I wanted to. So you can add links like that. The editor is straightforward to use. If I had graphics assets, I could put them in here and so on. If I go into, if I go into the note object, so the note object is actually a free text object in the sense it's absolutely free form, but it's rendered on the page differently. So it's just so that you can use, you can present information in different ways to signal the different purpose. So this is just a note. And then pre-knowledge. So under pre-knowledge, you get to list what you think the student ought to know. Okay, so these are all text objects, and you see that the point is that they render differently on the page. How they render is controlled by the style. All of the styles know about all of the different kinds of objects, and they render them according to different CSS rules. Some of them are very plain, and some of them are not so plain. I'm just going to go back to, what do I like? I quite like silver. I'll leave it with silver for the moment, so you can swap the output style at any moment. So you carry on adding objects, and you can add, as well as free text objects, we can add non-textual information. So we could add a link to an external website just by adding that iDevice and typing in a URL. So I'll put the URL of UCL in there. Now, the default is that this should be displayed in a frame. this website will be displayed in a frame. So I'm going to put it into a large frame on here. So there is, we've embedded the UCL website in a frame inside our learning. The other kind of non-textual information, another kind of non-textual information we can do, we can add a file as an attachment. So you can give it a title here. So this is the practice data file. And you may wish to give some instructions. Open this with Excel. Oops, capitalized, not properly, never mind. Sorry. And here we can actually, we get to browse to the file. So I'm sure I've got an Excel file somewhere. It's maybe on my Dropbox. Oh, there we go. There's my Excel. There's a data file. So let's upload that.
Sorry, Jim. Carl Gimblet said, can he embed code?
I beg your pardon?
You've got a question here. You've got a question, okay, from Carl. And he says, can you embed code?
Right. Okay. So let's go to... let me return to a simpler object. So here I had a free text object, and I can. Where is which text editor? Gone. I'm just trying to. You have to excuse me. As was almost certain to be the case, I have lost the rich text editor. So the answer is yes, you can. You can open up your text editor here and insert HTML directly. Because it's a SCORM package, that HTML could contain a link to, say, JavaScript, some JavaScript, so you can insert JavaScript into a page, either inline or the JavaScript could be in a separate file, and then the SCORM manifest would handle the link between them. So the answer is yes. You can put code in here, inside any object that's underlyingly is HTML. Some objects underlying are JavaScript. So, for example, some of the quiz objects, the interactive objects, those are actually JavaScript objects underneath. And so you probably don't want to inject code into those. You can create iDevices yourself. So this list of iDevices here, you can create your own iDevice and add it to eXe. So the answer to that one is yes, you can indeed inject code into these. For the moment, if it's okay, I'll just go back to looking at the preloaded iDevices. I was adding a file attachment. All right, just try and get rid of that. Okay, there we are. So I was down here adding a file, and so here's the data file that I just added, and you can again change the properties of that. So you can have a title, you can decide what to display. You can always delete an object, by the way, when you're editing a unit, a page, or a topic. Every object will have a little a delete button here to allow you to delete it, and this is the edit button. So I can edit the object just by clicking on here, save the object again. I can also just remove the object by clicking on the delete button, get a message asking me to confirm, and that object's now deleted. So we can embed an external website, we can add a file attachment. We've also got a few kind of nifty little widgets. So there's an image gallery widget here, and if I go into my users, where am I? Users, IST training team, pictures, IST, no, where am I? Go back one. I don't. Okay. No. I had to switch machines, and I've just realised that I didn't actually bring my picture assets in. So I'm trying to find some picture assets to it. Oh, there we go. So I can add these two picture assets to that iDevice, and when the iDevice renders, I'll get an image gallery. Not very exciting because it appears to be just the same image each time. But you can add a whole range of images there, and when it's rendered, it displays on screen in such a way that you can just browse through however many images you have. There's an image magnifier, which will allow you to put a magnifying glass on an image so that you can roll over the image and magnify different sections. If you're really keen, and this relates to the previous question as well, you could actually create Java applets and add them. So you can write your own code in Java from scratch. Now, that's deprecated, of course, because Java applets are a deprecated technology. The better way to do that now would be with JavaScript. There's a widget to add an iDevice, rather, to add an RSS feed. So you can, if you have a news aggregator site or a site that you want to turn into an aggregation, you can put that has RSS, you can put the RSS URL in there, and that will be added as an RSS feed to this page. So that will be something that will be constantly updating inside your learning object, even after it's been deployed, because it's RSS. And rather cheekily, you can actually go in and embed a wiki article, and the thing about embedding the wiki article is that it will actually be the embedded Wikipedia page. So let's just go and find a wiki page. Wikipedia SCORM. So here's the, I'll just take that URL. So this is the Wikipedia page for SCORM content. Go back to here and paste that in and then load. And if I just render that, you'll see that it's actually, the Wikipedia page actually embedded inside my learning object, with all the links live, and actually all of the editing live as well. So you can, people would be able to directly edit the Wikipedia page through your learning object. I'm not sure whether you would want them to do that, but they would be able to. So we've seen some textual information of various kinds, more kind of interestingly, the non-textual information. So images, file attachments, external websites embedded, wiki pages embedded, and so on. And I think maybe that just gives you an idea of how this is working. The way it's working is it's giving you a collection of predefined object types that you can insert into a page. And let's just quickly look at an interactive activity. So these are the interactive activities, and what I'll do now is I'll just put in let's do a multiple choice question. So let's change the title of the object. Do you know? And let's see. So the question is SCORM and let's see. So the options will be an instructional design method, and then we'll add another option. So an authoring, my typing is getting really bad, package. Let's add a hint. It's a standard of some kind. Feedback, no, but add is. Give some feedback for this one. Just say correct. And I'm just going to note here, I'm just going to make sure here that that is marked as the correct option. Okay, I think do you know is, and those are the multiple choice options. Choose there. So now let's just try that out. We'll click on is SCORM an instructional design method? Oh, and the feedback says no. So is SCORM an authoring package? That's correct. Now you've got multiple choice. You have a multiple select as well, which differs in that they can choose more than one object. You've true/false questions, where the learner just decides if it's true or false. You've got the close activity, where you have missing words and they choose a missing word. You have a list of correct options. And drop down, where they select an answer for a drop down. So you've got a whole range of question types that you can add in there. And you'll notice that you've also got the SCORM quiz. And the difference is this: the SCORM quiz, your LMS will be able to track the answers and the results. So if you choose a SCORM quiz type, then if you load the answer into it, if you load the content into an LMS, your LMS will be able to access the learner's activity and be able to record their results and so on, and use them in the LMS as it does other assessment exercises that you might have in there. So that's why you've got those different types. Non-interactive activities, these are, again, remembering that everything is really just a wrapper for your content. And really, so someone's creating one here called case study. And in a case study, you have a story that you tell them about, an activity, which so maybe the story sets up a problem. The activity is that they should discuss solutions to the problem, and then you can give them feedback. So you can say, what you think the characteristics of a good solution are, and so on. A reading activity, very similar. All of these are only going to be different in the way that they're rendered, so that the idea being that the user is able to distinguish different kinds of activity in the learning. And then the reflective activity, so you can ask them a reflective question about the learning, and you can give them feedback. And there's a hide the feedback button, so that they can, you hope that the learners will actually engage with the reflective question. Then maybe afterwards they'll click show feedback, and you can give them your feedback on that particular exercise. So those are the iDevices, and they're the things that actually wrap up your content. When you've created your content, you save your new learning object. So I'll just call it test. I've probably got hundreds of test objects already, but there we go. And now, takes a moment, it reloads it after I've saved it, and I can do a couple of things. I can preview it, which will give me the HTML5 view. So if I preview it, I'm going to see it as a website, and here are my controls created automatically, so I can get rid of the menu system if I want to. I've got the navigation buttons automatically created here. I can look at the objects, so what is SCORM? LMS standards, and there are the different objects I created on that page. There's my quiz, so is SCORM an authoring package? Yes, that's correct. And the outline has been used to create this menuing system here to allow your learners to work their way through the material. So you can preview it, and preview gives you straightforwardly just HTML5. The other thing that you could do at this point is you can publish the content. You can export the content. And if we're interested in SCORM, then we're going to be publishing either as SCORM 2 or SCORM 2004. Now, we've got Moodle here at UCL, and we are, at the moment, the advice is that we should publish as SCORM 2004. You have common cartridge there and IMS content package. Now, actually, Moodle will actually probably deal with all of these if I want it to, but I think SCORM 2004 is the one that we are advised to use. You can publish as a website. Now, if you wanted a standalone website, you would publish it to a self-contained folder, and in fact, that's what I'll do now. So the website that I've created there, I make a new folder called test, and I'll select that, and it's now published a website that I could upload to any web server. Any ordinary standards compliant web server would now host all the material, and it would behave as expected. The other thing that I can do is I can export it as an EPUB. So I've only tried this once, but EPUB 3 is a standard that's used on a lot of electronic book reading devices. That kind of worked quite well, although not all of the, I couldn't work out how some of the content worked, but I don't use ebooks. I think that's really the issue. So I'm going to publish it the other way. I'm going to export it as a SCORM 2004. So again, I'll create a separate directory for this. So this is test in SCORM format. I give it a name, which is my SCORM test file. And actually, SCORM packages are just zip files. They're just compressed files. And probably the most important part of a SCORM package is that inside the zip file, there'll be some XML files, and one of them will be the manifest. And the manifest is an XML file, and it contains all of the instructions about how this content is to be used by the LMS. So I can just save that now. I need to check where that was. Export. I didn't actually look to see where I was sending that to. Documents. Just want to make sure that I actually know where that is. I'm not always very good at using this Mac, so I'll just export it again because I'm convinced that I've lost it. Export. Educational Standards, SCORM 2004, and let's put it in ISD Training Team. Test package. Save. Users ISD training team SCORM test package.zip. So that's it. I've created the SCORM package, and if I go into my Moodle site now, I can upload that SCORM package and you'll see how it renders. So let's just go in. Here's my sandbox course, so I'm just going to turn editing on and add a package. Sorry, it's a bit slow. It really is a bit slow, I do apologise. You can see that actually I've added lots of these test packages in here at one time or another. Okay, so let's go down to the bottom, add an activity or resource. If you haven't used Moodle before, this is how you add content to Moodle, and I'm adding a SCORM package. Click on add. Name, testing again, not very interesting content. So and here's where the work actually happens. I have to find the package file. So I'll click on, sorry, I'll just show you that. I'll click on files and browse to find my SCORM package. So we were in documents, users, where is users? All my files. No. Okay. I've never really understood how file browse. There it is, SCORM test package.zip. I've never learned how to use file browsing on the Mac. I do apologise. So I've told Moodle to upload this, and I won't rename it. I'll put me in as the author. I may as well bear the shame. And you could, Moodle allows you to choose a license if it's suitable, if you need to at that point. So that will upload it, and it will actually, it's set up to, when that's saved, to unzip in the background. So I'll save and display, and then let's go in and look at how that actually looks online. So you can see, by default, this is how this SCORM package displays in Moodle. You have a navigation tree down this side. So there's all the content. You can, in the way that our Moodle works, we've got a lot of screen furniture, and so you might actually want to hide that menu there. You can use the navigation controls at the bottom of the screen if you want to, or you can show the menu again. So that's what happens when I export the content I created. I can either create a web page. These are web pages that I'm actually in the process of working on at the moment for some software packages, or I can create a SCORM package and import it into my LMS. Okay, that's breakneck. I appreciate really breakneck.
Oh.
And I hope, you know, that it's not so breakneck that you just don't know what's going on.
What I would like to do, Jim, is just to open up the floor for questions. If anybody has any questions.
I think so. So the one thing I wanted to say, by the way, I'm not going to have time to go into it, but you can customize it. I've overrun, haven't I? But are there any questions?
Well, no, we've got 6 more minutes. I just want to make sure if anybody's got any questions that we can cover that within those 6 minutes. So I'm just having a look in the chat right now. And I've got Elizabeth that says, thank you, that was a great overview of what is possible with eXe. And you've got Tom that's saying that's really useful, Jim. Yeah, so thanks very much. And then you've got Jack, he asks the question, can you customize a theme? And that's what you were going to talk about. So if you want to answer him or do a quick little, can you actually show him how to customize something? Or
let's just go back to eXe for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
So these are all themes, and you can see these were all themes. These have been created by eXe users and community contributed. So Jack, what happens is there's a theme called Base, which is a very plain theme. And to create a new theme, what you actually do is you clone that. It's a folder called Base in your eXe installation. You clone the folder, you rename the folder, and inside the folder there are 3 CSS files, one controlling the navigation, one controlling the actual styling of the text objects, and then one of them setting up how images are displayed. Those 3 CSS files control the whole thing. The look and feel is controlled by that. So when I'm looking at an eXe style that's got lots of graphics in it, like this one, I can go in and I can actually swap out this image for a different image. I just have to go into the folder and either change, and I can change the CSS, so I could change the background color by changing the CSS file, and I can change all of these images by just replacing them. So one thing that we probably want to do is, if we look at this one, there's a not very visible logo up here in the top right. That's just a file called logo.jpg, so you would just substitute your file for that. So it's actually very simple to customize. If you know CSS and HTML, you can do almost anything.
Okay, I've got another question. All right, it's from Tim. He says, thank you. Can you get any statistics, I can't even say the word, in a web page, or is it only in a VLE? If you want stats.
Right. So eXe is just an authoring package. So eXe is actually just sitting locally on my machine, and it's not connected to any website whatsoever. So if you wanted analytics, you would have to get them through Google Analytics if you're hosting on a website. Inside the VLE, of course, you're going to get whatever analytics the VLE can do. But no, eXe itself is not providing you with any analytics.
Okay, thank you for that. I think we've got, Nikki, are you typing something?
2 minutes.
Okay, we've got 2 minutes, so I think we're going to end that there. Could you just drop your email? If anybody had any, would you mind if people emailed you if they had any more questions?
Yeah, I'm more than happy to talk to people about it. So I'm j.tyson@ucl.ac.uk, and I'm really happy to hear from people if they have questions. The other thing, of course, is you could go to the exelearning.net site to find out more about it there.
Okay, wonderful. Could you do me a favour and go back to that slide for me?
Yeah, sure.
And if you could go just right to the end, well, the second one to the end. Keep moving forward. Can you move forward anymore? Could you move that slide forward? So I want to go to the next slide and the next slide. Okay, all right, so really what I wanted to talk about is the next 60-minute tech talk. Okay, we're going to revisit a case study, and the case study was Leeds Beckett University. Okay, so if you want to hear more about what's happened to them in the last 5 years, then please join us again. Book onto the, it will be publicised by UCISA. It's the 3rd of October at 12 p.m. And I think that's all we've got time for. This is being recorded. It will be put onto the UCISA website, and it's also on the community website as well. That's where you'll find it. So thank you so much for coming along, and we enjoyed your company, and we'll be doing more of these. So thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody, and apologies for overrunning.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jim. It's lovely. You're not overrunning. We still.
Okay, goodbye.
Bye.